Yo, 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 what it is, what it was, what's it gonna be?
Welcome.
Welcome to the latest episode of the Gen Expertise Podcast, episode 35, titled Dead Poets Society, Volume 1. Gil Scott-Heron.
Welcome.
We are your hosts, Main and Rants, and the revolution will not be podcasticized.
Now you know that's not a word.
My brother, my ace, how you doing, man?
I'm good, man. How about yourself?
I'm good, man. I'm good. No complaints. So this is another first of one of our long what's turning to be a long line of series.
Yeah.
Dead Poets Society, and we figured we'd use Gil Scott-Heron. I was inspired because, number one, I was listening to that old Kanye.
Yeah,
And,
home, right? Like
that home with Common rapping on it, I think.
Yeah.
Is it graduation or late registration? I can't forget, but I was listening.
Yeah, I can't remember either which one.
I was listening to it and I was like, yo, Gil Scott-Heron, man. A lot of people, he's one of those guys,
He's an
man.
influence.
Gil is that guy, yo.
Yeah, and on that song, it's funny you mentioned that because I listened to that I listened to that not too long ago, but it's Home is Where the Hatred Is was sampled.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
man.
That's a deep one too.
Yeah, that's a real deep one. We're gonna get into that too, man.
Oh yeah.
But before we start, this is also a first. Because I know a lot of our listeners, some of them listen with their children. So, advisory, we got to put the advisory, because there will be possible talks about drug usage and paraphernalia in this episode of the Gen Expertise Podcast. Yes,
maybe.
So it's educational uses only, but there may be some talk about drug use. So There you go. There's your disclaimer.
And possible use of the N-word, now that I think about it. But just in reference to
within context, of course.
Absolutely within context. Like, we try to, like you said, like we try to keep this podcast kid friendly and appropriate for all listeners. Mm-hmm. So just that's a good disclaimer to put out there, that there's gonna be some language and topics discussed here, but it's strictly in the context of the topic, right?
For educational purposes only.
Yep, absolutely. And so, also,
go ahead.
But no, go.
No, I was going to say, since we got that out the way, but go ahead. But
you're going to start cursing up a storm, right? Like we said, it was for education.
Yeah.
No, so one thing I wanted to touch on before we get started with the actual topic is in recent news, and a lot of people are probably already aware of this, but the Artemis 2 mission to the moon actually returned on Friday. So I just wanted to give a shout out to Victor Glover, who was the first Black man to actually make one of these missions around the moon.
That's right.
I didn't know that. So Victor Glover is also, fun fact, a member of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated. So shout out to him. Yeah, I wanted to give a shout out to him because, I'm a member of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated as well. Mm-hmm. So shout out to my frat brother, Victor Glover, on the Artemis 2 mission. And matter of fact, shout out everybody, a whole crew on that mission. Because I don't think that's been done. If I'm not mistaken, there hasn't been a mission by, at least by like a U.S. crew to the moon since like 1972.
Yeah, it's been a minute.
So I thought that was, it's obviously is incredible. And then as I'm looking at this, right, like when you see the stories about this online, you see a lot of the conspiracy theories too about whether or not the U.S. has actually been to the moon, and even if this particular mission has been kind of faked, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm not here to make that argument. I'll let you know that I'm on the side of it's real. But I'll leave it at that. But I noticed that I was just surprised that that type of theory is still being floated even in 2026 for the most recent missions. You still have kind of a segment of the population that doesn't believe that this is possible. But yeah, shout out to Victor Glover.
Shout out to Victor Glover. Shout out to everybody that went up and came back safely.
Yeah, absolutely. Shout out to the whole crew. The whole crew.
The whole crew, man. So I'm not gonna lie, man. I'm always a little traumatized because we're part of those children that watched was it the Challenger that went up and didn't make
I
it
know what you're
back?
talking. I was in like fifth. I think we were in fifth grade when that
Yes,
happened,
yes.
and they actually rolled out. There's one of
They
those
rolled
moments where
out
they
the
rolled out the
TV.
TV. Yeah, they rolled out the
Yes.
TV. So Gen Xers understand what that means when the TV
Hmm.
rolls out. Either something special is happening, or you have a substitute teacher. But
Yeah,
in this case, it was something really special was about to happen, or so we thought. Right? It's still an
yeah,
impactful thing. But like you said,
yeah.
um,
But on the wrong
right,
side of it all, man. So every
right,
time they say there's a space launch or something, I kind of get a little PTSD about it, man. Like I cross my
yeah,
fingers and I say a little prayer for them, man. Hope they get back and get up and
yeah.
get back safely, man,
It's
because
definitely something
Mhm.
that burns on your brain, like especially like at that age, man. Like we were so impressionable and so excited about seeing that, and to have a tragedy happen as a result was like, yeah, it was definitely traumatizing and definitely something that kind of burns on your brain.
Mhm.
You never forget something like that. And
Yeah.
but another interesting kind of overlap of this is that we have this mission to the moon. This month is actually Gil Scott-Heron's birthday month. He was actually born on April 1st. He was
April
born on
1st,
April Fool's Day, April 1st. So his birthday just passed. So you know,
1949.
yeah. So happy belated birthday to Gil Scott-Heron posthumously.
Mhm.
But the reason that there's kind of in my mind, I make these weird connections sometimes, and maybe not so weird, right? But when
Mhm.
I make these connections, I think about a moon, a mission to the moon, and Gil Scott Heron's poem, Whitey on the Moon, right?
Mhm.
And I'm sure we're gonna get into that, but it just was like, oh wow, so we're doing this show. His birthday just passed. A mission to the moon just returned, and
Mhm.
one of his most famous poems is Whitey on the Moon.
Yeah.
So I thought all that overlap was a little bit interesting.
Yeah, that's cool. So, as you said, Gil Scott Heron was born April 1st, 1949 in Chicago. So, at the Gen Expertise Show, we're all about giving you knowledge and things that you can listen to us say and then go and look for yourself. So, read about it, watch documentaries. We always give somewhat of a Cliff Note version of everything because if we were to get super deep into our subjects, they'd be like 2, 3 hours long. So we're
Yeah,
basically going to
yeah,
give you a rundown of some of our things that we know that we've learned about Gil Scott Heron, um, talk about some of his music, some of his albums, his songs, what those songs mean to us. But first off, let's just get into a quick bio. Like I said, born April 1st, 1949 in Chicago to Bobby Scott from Jackson, Tennessee, who was an opera singer. Did you know his mother was an opera singer?
no, I had no idea about that. Nope.
Yeah, I found out that his mother was an opera singer, and his father, Gil Heron, from Jamaica, was actually a football player, a soccer player, and he was the first black man to play for the Celtic FC in Glasgow, Scotland. Pardon me. He was known as the Black Arrow.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So as a youngster, his parents, when they split up, he moved down to Jackson, Tennessee. His mother sent him down to Jackson, Tennessee with his grandmother, where he lived from 1950 to 1962. Where also a fact that I found out is that in 1962, along with two others, I think Gillen Glover and Madeline Walker, they were the first to integrate the school system in Jackson, Tennessee.
Yeah, yeah. I
You
can't even
know?
imagine. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Right?
Whenever I hear a story about somebody integrating a school, it gives me
Yeah.
a chill because I think about the
Mhm.
age that they were and like kind of where I was at that age, and
Mhm.
kind of the courage it takes, and the just the wherewithal to
Yes.
to kind of weather that type of storm. I didn't know until we started kind of researching this.
Mhm.
Um so it makes his story even deeper, to me.
Yeah.
Like it's like,
Because it
wow.
was starting early with him.
Yeah, from the
The
time he was a
advocacy.
child. Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. From the time he was a child, he was in the fight for civil rights, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's where he found his love of poetry. because his grandmother would always listen to and read Langston Hughes. She was a big Langston Hughes fan. So that's where he first like really found his love of poetry. His grandmother passed, unfortunately, in 1962, and he was brought to the Bronx,
Yeah.
where he attended DeWitt Clinton for a year or two, and then he went to the Fieldstone School, which don't they have like campuses in Manhattan and the Bronx? The
Honestly,
Fieldstone
like
School. It's
I'm not
kind of like
sure.
a
Like
private school.
I think it was in Manhattan though, because at the time
Yeah,
I think once he left the Bronx, he wound up actually living in Chelsea, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
In a kind of a housing project in the Chelsea area.
Mm-hmm. Heavily Puerto Rican. He was famous for
He
saying
describes
that
it as
it
Puerto
was,
Rican and white.
yeah, he was saying it was 85% Puerto Rican, 50% white, and him. So also, when he was applying to Fieldstone, they asked him, how would you feel if you see one of your classmates go by in a limo while walking up the hill from the subway? Because it was an affluent school where affluent families sent their children. And he said the same as you would feel, because you can't afford a limousine either.
Right. That's funny. I didn't hear that story before. Like that's an
Yeah,
interesting one, but it kind of leads me into like what I did learn about him is that he had quite a sense of humor, right, about things.
yeah,
And he managed to turn any situation into kind of an introspective and something that's understandable to the masses.
yeah.
So that's funny, but I'm not surprised that he would be that witty and that clever and funny about it.
Yeah, he was known for his comedic stage presence. That's why everyone loved
Right,
his shows, and he would just stop and make jokes and talk to the crowd in between sets. After he finished high school, he went to Lincoln University, and that's where he met his longtime co-writer, Brian Jackson. They met, I think Brian Jackson said that he had all these songs that he was trying to work on that he figured it would take him like 5 years to do. And then he met Gil. And Gil asked him, I think he said he asked him two things like, what were you thinking and how were you feeling when you wrote this? And then he just took it from there and they just became good friends and co-writers since then when they
right,
met at Lincoln University. So that's where like a quick segue into like his beginnings,
right. And
you know?
I saw an interview with him, right? And he talks about one of the reasons that he wanted to go to Lincoln University is because Langston Hughes actually went there. So, like you
Yeah.
were saying, like his grandmother used to read Langston Hughes, and that was a big influence for him. Langston Hughes actually attended Lincoln University as well as Thurgood Marshall, Kwame Nkrumah, and
Mhm.
Melvin Tolson. So he mentions that in an interview, and that was part of one of the big reasons why he wanted to go there. Because at the time, Lincoln University seemed to be a place for, especially Black folks that wanted to kind of think about things deeply, and get
Yes.
together with like minded individuals. And he was able to do that there.
Mm-hmm. So that's where his story begins. He also called himself the bluesologist. He always called himself the bluesologist because of his love for blues. Along with Langston Hughes, some of his early influences were B.B. King, Bobby Blue Band, Bobby Blue Bland,
Easy for you to say,
and he was also a big Coltrane fan. Him and Brian Jackson as well.
right?
So a lot of his early spoken word was done along like jazz music.
Right.
So
Yeah,
those were
I think he even
some of
had a
his
song about like
influences.
that talks about that, right? Like Lady Day and Coltrane.
Lady Day and Coltrane, yes.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. You know? And his first um album was 1970 and it was called Small Talk at 125th and Lenox, I believe. I believe that
I
was his
think so.
first album in
Yeah.
1970. And it was off of his like spoken word. But was that a book too? Was that like did he put that in a book form? That I couldn't
Honestly,
like I was
I'm not
looking I couldn't see.
that I'm not sure. I know I do know it was an album as well. It was a
Mhm.
spoken word album, and it was actually he was signed to Flying Dutchman Records at the time.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, I don't know. In my research, I didn't see anything that showed it as a book as well.
Yeah.
Because the when I was researching, he had a couple of novels that he had written,
Mm-hmm.
and I was just amazed, man. Basically, like I know Gil Scott-Heron. I'm familiar with him from the work that I'm familiar with. Right, that's the music, the poetry,
Mm-hmm.
the albums that we've been able to consume over the years, the sampling that's been done by hip hop artists, stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that, right? But then in doing a little bit of deeper research, like I didn't even know this history of him writing a novel at like 19, 20 years old.
Yeah.
Um, he actually dropped out of Lincoln University freshman year to finish one of his novels, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then he went on to get get a master's in, I think, creative writing from Johns Hopkins.
Yeah.
Um, so we'll talk about that in a minute too, because it just led me to a couple of callbacks in terms of my memory and of our own conversations where it comes to education and the importance of education when we compare it to the trades, right? While the trades are important and every they can lead you to a lucrative career, right? Reading about Gil Scott Heron and then going and watching some of his interviews, it led me to rethink a couple of things about education as well, right? But we'll
Mm-hmm.
get into that in a moment. But yeah.
Yeah. One of the things that I also found interested in that he was the first artist on Arista Records.
Mm, yeah. I
The
thought that was
first
interesting too.
artist. The first artist on Arista Records.
The first
Um,
artist and that was Clive Davis at the time
Clyde
running that,
Davis.
right?
Mm-hmm.
He's the founder of
That's when he
Arista.
had out the In the Bottle song, which my father was actually letting me know how popular that song was, In the Bottle. And I heard that they said back then when that song was out, if they didn't play it at the club, the DJ was trash. You know what I mean? Everybody was asking for the In the Bottle. So when Clive Davis, when this song came across Clive Davis's desk, I guess he figured he had to sign him. I think he did 9 albums on Arista. He was the very first artist
Uh,
signed, and then after him was Barry Manilow.
wow, that's a stark contrast, right?
Yeah, yeah. So he did 9. I think it's 9. Maybe there was a posthumous album, but he physically, I believe himself, he recorded 9 albums with Arista. Uh, Clive Davis mentioned he envisioned him being like this disco popish type musician star. He thought he was going to keep getting the up tempo In the Bottle type music, but
Uh-huh.
Gil Scott had a mind of his own. You know, he knew what he wanted, how he wanted to say his music, how he wanted to get his music out there. So
Sure.
yeah, he was like he envisioned him being a totally different artist, but Gil would have none of it.
Right,
He
right.
was locked in to what he wanted to do, who he wanted to say it to, and what he wanted to be as an artist,
Yeah,
you know?
that makes sense but it feels like, you hear a hit record as a, as the head of a record company, you just
Hmm.
want to keep churning those out, right? Like you want it to be
Yeah.
a money machine, but
Hmm.
he's trying to get a message across, right? And whether or not you is sonically pleasing to you seem to be like secondary or just like a plus.
One of my favorite, I feel personally his best work, I think, is his second like album is Pieces of a Man.
Pieces of a Man, yeah. I like that one.
Yeah, that's my joint. That's my joint. So something different here that I want to try here on the Gen Expertise podcast too
Go for it.
is that there's 3 songs that I picked personally off of this album that I like. 3 of my favorite album 3 of my favorite songs off of this album. And what I want to do is I'm going to say a verse or 2 from each of them, and then we can discuss like how we feel about it. That's the
Okay,
first.
well,
Lane didn't even know we
surprise,
was going to do that.
surprise.
Surprise, surprise! You know, so we'll
Okay.
be dodging and weaving in and out, but saying
Are
things.
you gonna sing or are you gonna just
No, spoken word only,
spoken word only?
in
Okay.
honor of Gil Scott-Heron. You know what I mean? And so that
Okay,
we
no,
don't get sued. And so that we
don't get
don't
it,
get
but
sued.
yeah, don't get it twisted. Some of his spoken word was pretty melodic. In the
Spoken word
bottle.
only. Spoken word only, son. But he lived a very interesting life.
To say the least. Yeah.
To say the least, man. I forgot that he did the song Johannesburg.
Yeah.
Everybody knows the revolution will not be televised.
Right.
That's probably what he's most famous for.
You will not be able to plug in, turn on, or cop out.
That's right. The revolution will not be televised. So that's probably what he's best known for. And Johannesburg, I didn't know that was a popular song, and he always said that he felt like he got on the train late when it came to like talking about the rights and the oppression of South Africa.
Yeah, I saw that in one of his interviews where he said that he was late even learning about the situation, and he felt bad about like being so late and even knowing what was going on over there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So he lived the life. He lived the life. He passed, I believe, in May of 2011.
2011. Yeah.
2011. And I think Kanye performed at his funeral.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
I believe Kanye performed at his funeral in 2011. The song that he performed, I'm not sure, but I'm thinking maybe it was like My Way Home. Maybe it was My Way Home. That was a dope song. I must have listened to it like 10 times in a row, and that's where my inspiration came from. You know? So the first song that I have, which is Pieces of a Man.
And just to be clear,
yes.
I don't really have any songs that I'm going to perform.
Exactly.
So I just want to be clear on that. Don't expect Maine to be home is where the hatred is. And it might not be such a bad idea for never. No, you know what? Let's stop here.
So first, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna take two verses.
You can edit that out if you want.
I'm kind of that's staying in. So I'm gonna take two verses, and this is from Pieces of a Man, off Pieces of a Man album, 1971. I'm gonna take the second and the fourth verse, and it goes, I saw my daddy greet the mailman, and I heard the mailman say, now don't you take this letter to heart now, Jimmy, 'cause they've laid off 9 others today. But he didn't know what he was saying. He could hardly understand that he was only talking to pieces of a man. Pieces of that letter were tossed about the room, and now I hear the sound of sirens come knifing through the room. But they don't know what they are doing. They could hardly understand that they're only arresting pieces of a man. So the good thing about a lot of his songs, though, it's not a lot of verses. So there's like, this one has about like 4 to 5 verses. So I took the second and the fourth because this song in particular makes me think of like just being a father and knowing what times were like through hearing my parents or my uncles or relatives talk about times in the 60s and the 70s. And imagine, first of all, yo, the mailman is nosy as I don't know what. The mailman's like, yo, bro, this is like the 9th level after he knows what, but yo, the mailman knows everything, son. But even it starts off with like him in his grandmother's house, and his father's like tearing up the house. So he gets this notice that, he's being laid off of work, and he's not the only one. This is, there's probably more after him as well.
Sure.
And so it's just like this decline, this almost like mental and physical decline of a man in front of his child who's watching him go through this. And now it's like, how am I going to support my family? I'm a man. I need to take care of myself. I need to take care of my family. And to like have a job and to be invested and to work at something and to have it taken away from you, is like, it's heartbreaking, man. Like, it's just, I really feel it as a father, because it's our job to provide, to take care of our family, to take care of our right. children. Just when to listen to it, and then how he's upset, he's tearing up the house. And then it's kind of, you see both perspectives. You see his perspective, but you also see the child's perspective as what they're looking at. And they're looking at their father, who they thought was this pillar of a person, who is someone that you look up to, that you depend on, and you just see them in like their weakest state.
Right.
And I think that just as a father and as a parent altogether, just thinking like, dogs, what what would you do in that situation where it's like maybe it's hopeless because jobs were coming that easy back then.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Especially as a black father, black or brown man in America, it wasn't easy to get a job. So when you got something, you held on to it like your life depended on it, and usually it did.
Sure.
So
Sure.
that one really touched me, man. That really touched me.
Right.
Mhm.
And absolutely. And I think the other thing that it makes me think of is the fact that it's kind of a plea by the subject of the poem, right? Like saying like, they don't know that he's delivering this letter to pieces of a man, or they don't know that they're arresting pieces of a man. It speaks to kind of the indignities that this person is suffering before this happens, right? It
Yeah.
speaks to like a history of this, like a knowing disappointment, a knowing of being kind of degraded and diminished over
Mhm.
time, right? So he's saying that they don't know that they're dealing with pieces of a man in these situations, but he
Yeah.
knows, like
Yeah.
that's how he feels about himself, even
Mhm.
before the letter comes,
Yeah.
even before the arrest happens. He's talking about the fact that they don't know they're dealing with pieces of a man, but he does. Like he's it's introspective in that way. And
Mhm.
that part is chilling. It's scary almost to me to think of
Yeah.
that, for the same reason you're saying, is because as a father now, knowing that your role, or at least a large part of your role, is to at least be helping with providing for your family. And in modern day times, like there's a shared responsibility, obviously, but like so we're talking about like the 60s, 70s, stuff like that, where um we're at the civil rights movement. We're talking about the heart of the civil rights movement, and at
Mhm.
that, what everything that's happened in that time period would lead a person to have lived through several indignities, several instances where they've been diminished, where they've been
Mhm.
degraded, where they've been humiliated, probably, that would lead them to think of themselves as not a full man, not a full human, but
Yeah.
pieces of one, because
Mhm.
so many pieces have been taken away, so much has been damaged and scarred and destroyed, that you are, by this point, you're only dealing with pieces of a person anyway,
Yeah.
right? And I find it like really profound the way Gil Scott-Heron is able to convey that message. I don't want to call it simple, because it's not simple. Simple is not the right word. That's not the word I'm looking for. But it's a very direct and straightforward, and at the time, just using the vernacular of the time to deliver this type of feeling is it's a skill, right?
Yeah.
It's a really profound skill.
Yeah. Even the cadence that he uses in it when he's like pieces of a
Yeah,
man. He said da, da,
it's
da, da,
sad.
da, da. It's sad. It's almost like it's gut wrenching. It's like you said, you go out into the world, you start off whole and you go out to the world, and every time you come home,
It chips
there's
away.
just like a chip of there's chips. It's like a small hole here, a small hole there, a small hole here. And you could only get so much duct tape. You know what I'm saying? Like until it's finally like your soul is bearing. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like you can't even hide it from your children, from your wife, from your mother, from your father, from whoever that you live with. It's just like spilling out. It's a crazy song. The visuals on it is crazy. The cadence on it is crazy. How he's just singing it and he's kind of like breaking down each verse. How it's talking with like it's just ill. It's just the genius of Gil Scott-Heron, yo. So what you got for us, brother? What information do you have for us?
Oh, I was about to say, like I told you that
Yeah,
I'm not
yeah,
gonna
yeah, yeah,
be out here.
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
This,
so so mine is kind of quick on this one, right? Because
yeah.
as part of my research, like I was, like I said, I was like looking up interviews by Gil Scott-Heron and learning about like kind of what he thought of himself. Because a lot of times you and I talk on the podcast about what we think of certain topics. We give our opinion, and how things made us feel and such like that, right? But what I was finding is that I was able to hear about him in his own words, and I thought
Mhm,
that was interesting, because a lot of times when we look up information, even, I'm finding like third parties talking about the subject that we're researching at the time, right? Um, and one of the things that came to mind was the revolution will not be televised, right? And you already said that that's one of his most popular works, and if you don't know about that, I really highly recommend you look it up. Like me, and, Lance and I always make recommendations about books, about TV shows, about movies. But Gil Scott Heron's work is something that I can't recommend enough. But especially The Revolution Will Not Be Televised. And especially for those of us that feel like we're in a situation where we're looking at a government or like a system that seems kind of undefeatable or seems to be kind of trampling on everybody's rights.
Mm-hmm.
If that's a feeling that you've ever had, even not just now, but like if there's a feeling you ever had of like kind of hopelessness and what can I do to correct any of this, or what does my little voice matter? Something like The Revolution Will Not Be Televised kind of it's meant to give a message, but it's also kind of hopeful, right? And I'll explain like kind of what I mean about by that, right? Because in his own words, he's saying that it was parody, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I found that to be a little surprising. I'm like, wow, this is a deep poem, and it's really
Yeah.
about revolution. It's about fighting an oppressive system, and he's saying that it was parody. And the reason he's saying it's parody is because he had a way of kind of putting humor into a very serious topic, right? Like, so something like saying that the revolution will not be televised was really kind of poking fun at those that would be sitting back and kind of in a couch potato or armchair quarterback type of way,
Mm-hmm.
thinking that some change is going to come and they'll be able to see it on television. And the message that he's trying to deliver is that the change that we're seeking is not going to happen by being passive and watching on television.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to happen first in your mind, right? And I thought that was a big kind of I don't want to say it's a revelation because I've kind of heard that before, but it was just like something. It was almost a reminder
Yeah.
that whatever change you're looking for is not going to happen as you look at a screen, right? And it was profound because it's like, okay, he's talking about this in like 1970 and 1971, right? And now in 2026, there's a different type of call for change, but some of it is happening from a screen.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the protests, a lot of the rage that you're seeing is from folks that are kind of staring at a screen, a much smaller screen nowadays, but I think the message is still the same. Like Gil Scott Heron he would still tell us, like, hey, it's all well and good to get information from these screens and to, he would also warn us that we need to filter out some of the misinformation. Because even
Mm-hmm.
then, even back in 1971, and he was saying that hey, a lot of the information that we're getting on the television is false, right?
Yeah.
It's tailored to give us a certain message to create a narrative, right? And more so than ever, his words ring true in 2026. It's ramped up to the point of being kind of an art form, like it's become a science. But now we have our phones, we have
Yeah.
we still have the TV, we got our
Mm-hmm.
computers, we have our tablets to deliver these messages, right? But it's almost like he was saying it in a way that was like just easy to consume is what I guess the real point I'm trying to make about the parody side of it, and the fact that the message still rings true even in 2026, and probably more so than ever given the powerful way that message could be conveyed, the powerful
Mm-hmm.
way that misinformation could be spread in the speed of light, literally.
I think Michael Jackson kind of had the "Man in the Mirror" song. You know what I'm saying? It's like it got to start with you, and this was like kind of like the early version. Look, you can't just sit there waiting to watch it. You can't sit there waiting for somebody else to say it or somebody else to do it. It's not going to be there for you to watch. So it takes a it's at some point you have to get up out your chair, you have to get up out your seat and stand up for what you believe in, to stand up for your rights or whatever you need to stand up for. And this is 1970 that he's
Yeah,
saying this. Do you know what I mean? So he's far ahead of his time in the way. And like you said, now it's 10 times worse. Now it's everywhere,
yeah.
with the dawn
Now
of
yeah,
technology.
exactly. Like now you're pretty much carrying a propaganda machine around in your pocket
Absolutely.
all all the time. And
Absolutely.
if you're not very, very careful about the information that you're consuming and being kind of a skeptic consumer, right?
Hmm.
Um, you could be misled pretty easily. Like if you're not going into it with a
Yeah.
certain mindset that some of this information is false, and then
Mm,
they're also having the mindset that everything I'm seeing on either television or online doesn't exactly translate to what is really going on outside, right? Like, so it's
mhm.
very important to kind of examine the world for yourself.
Yeah.
And he talks about that, right? Like, because even on television, somebody gets shot, once the director yells cut, the person gets right back up and redo the scene, but
Mhm.
you can't, he describes like a kid shooting someone and saying, "Oh, I saw it on television and it looked like nobody got hurt, so I went out and did it," right?
Yeah.
Saying we have to have like a certain amount of space for everyone to learn that things that are happening on the screen are not necessarily in sync with what's happening in the real world. So I just thought it was just interesting how the message still rings true, right?
Yeah. Yeah. All right, I have my next contribution
Go for it.
is Home is Where the Hatred Is.
Oh yeah.
Also off the Pieces of a Man
You're
album.
gonna you were gonna sing this one?
I
No.
don't know. I might get a little rhythmic, little
What happens? Like we're not getting paid for this, so if we start singing, will they remove this from?
probably not cuz we're still nobodies. You know what I mean?
We're not important
But
enough for anybody to censor us.
so I will start off. I left 3 days ago. But no one seems to know I'm gone. Home is where the hatred is. Home is filled with pain, and it might not be such a bad idea if I never went home again. Home again. Home again. All right. And then stand as far away from me as you can and ask me why. Hang on to your rosary beads. Close your eyes to watch me die. You keep saying, kick it, quit it, kick it, quit it. God, but did you ever try to turn your sick soul inside out so that the world can watch you die? Yo, that is so. Unfortunately, we're children of the 80s and we grew up.
Fortunately or unfortunately, yeah.
Unfortunately
Both.
or fortunately, either which way, we grew up through the drug era, through the crack era. We grew up
Right.
with, and you know what? As I was listening to this, the more I listened to it, the more I realized how bad of a problem. Like it transcends all barriers, man.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? Addiction
Absolutely.
transcends all barriers, and it can't just it can be whatever is your choice, whatever's your demon, whatever consumes you. It has no barrier, it has no color. It's probably the least racist thing. Addiction is probably the least racist thing when you sit in the jar. Like it's coming from it for everybody,
Yeah,
and to
it
hear
does not discriminate, right?
it does not discriminate at all.
addiction does not discriminate.
Addiction does not discriminate. And many of us, myself, Maine, and a lot of our listeners, we grew up and we may have friends or family members who were strung out or addicted to drugs or alcohol or whatever their vices was. And this is just such a like and one of the things is it's almost like to say like I can't go back home, like there's nothing there for me. You know what I mean? Like the pain is so much to bear that he can't go home because no one's going to understand, and they keep telling him like it's easy just to kick it, quit it, kick it,
Right.
quit it. And he's like, "Yo, did you ever try? Have you do you know how hard it is to get off of this?" It's just such a sad thing because it's personal too. Because, like I said, we all know somebody. And then it's a certain level of understanding when I listen to it. And it's like, yeah, you just want them to get off of it, to get the monkey off their back, so to speak. But it's not as easy as you as a person who's not addicted to the substance. It's just not that easy. So the level of compassion isn't always there. And here this person is suffering And Lord knows they want to, but they can't. But they also can't come back home because they know as soon as they come back home, all you're going to be telling them is like, yo, get yourself together. You should do this. You should do that. So it's like an endless cycle that shows you like just how bad drugs are in the community, how it's ravaged families and destroyed friendships.
He's actually quoted as saying, and I'm gonna paraphrase this, but he says like, "Sometimes I beat it, and other times it whoops my behind."
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. He
Um,
never hid his drug abuse,
yeah,
which
he never hit
he
his
never, he
drug abuse.
never hid
He
his,
was very open about that. Like he
yeah.
tells stories about times where he went to jail, he got caught with drugs on his person, right? And he did some time for that. But yeah, I thought that resonated, right? When he said sometimes I beat it and
Yeah.
other times it whoops my behind, right? Like because that could be for anything, not just addiction. I know,
Yes.
like we're being specific about the addiction, but it feels like that's kind of a metaphor, like an analogy for a lot of things in life. Like sometimes you beat it and then sometimes it whoops you behind, right? Like it
Yeah.
speaks to like a universal truth of like constantly struggling against anything that you're having an extremely hard time with. But in this case, like you're saying, like we grew up in a time where addiction wasn't it wasn't surprising when if you heard
Yeah.
folks were addicted to something, right? Because the
Yeah.
crack epidemic seemed to be sweeping through the nation at some point in the 80s, especially, um, where it just wasn't a surprise anymore. Like when you started hearing more and more people were
Mhm.
addicted to this, and you started seeing for yourself, even and and it became personal. If it's like a family member or a friend of yours, somebody that used to, even like just a neighborhood person who used to see them, and now it's very obvious that they're addicted and they're kind of chasing that high at
Mhm.
this point, right?
Yeah.
And it definitely devastated the neighborhoods. Um, it definitely swept through the neighborhood like a tsunami, man. Like
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
pretty much touched and damn near destroyed everything, right?
Everything. And then you're talking about him making this in 1971, so that's right off the heels of the heroin pandemic,
Right,
which just destroyed Harlem. You
right.
know what I mean? In particular. So um it's very, it's just like when you listen to his music, like I haven't sat down and really listened to his music in a long time, and I was just like just listening to the songs, just listening to the songs, and you can really feel his music, man. You know what I mean? Like you can real his music was so present and ahead of its time all
Right.
at the same time.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, man, like I started listening to him like more and more, like as I heard like some hip hop artists kind of
Mhm.
sampling pieces of his songs, right?
Yeah.
And I actually stopped listening to it for kind of for this reason. No, I'm just
Yeah.
full disclosure. Some of the music was so dark and so vivid that it would
Mhm.
affect your mood, right?
Yeah.
So, if you're listening to something that's about some sadness or some tragedy in the like something that's a societal statement, some of that stuff was just almost too much to bear, like I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
um and something like Home Is Where the Hatred Is, like I can only listen to that maybe once, and then I
Mhm.
put it down for long periods of time.
Mhm.
At least not in its entirety. Some of it is pretty melodic, and I can listen to the hook or something and
Yeah.
just feel the vibe of it, but I can't listen to that whole song more than like once in a long stretch of time, right?
Yeah.
And again, man, like it speaks to how easily he was able to convey what's happening in this little kind of microcosm of society, um, and get you to understand it. It feels like he would just use the simplest terms, but simple doesn't seem to do it justice. But
Yeah.
it's like just the most direct and straightforward, but yet pretty profound. And I guess you could almost see like the Langston Hughes kind of influence there, because Langston
Mhm.
Hughes had a similar style of being able to speak in the vernacular of the time, but still
Mhm.
deliver you a message that's profound, right?
Yeah.
Um,
And
yeah.
he said that's why he really loved Langston Hughes because it would be a guy like just getting kicked around, but then he would
Uh-huh.
kind of come out on top at the end of
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
of his poems. So that's why he was a fan of Langston Hughes. And then he decided, I guess, to go a different approach. And he
Well, yeah. I mean,
It was such realism, you know.
yeah, and it's they both speak to like kind of the resilience of a people, right? Like
Yeah.
but yeah, yeah,
I always say that the point of communication is to get a point across, and I feel
exactly,
like you said
exactly,
they're using the vernacular and the lingo that he uses, it puts you straight like in a house with your friends, or it puts you at a table with your family, or it puts you in the barbershop, or it puts you on the corner of 125th and
and
Lennox, and it
Lennox,
puts you
yeah,
where this is how we speak. This is what it is. So there's no deciphering words. It's very direct, it's very to the point. And the way that he sings the songs with like he really conveys the pain in his voice with not even being like no one would call him a great singer. You know what I'm saying? He's just a spoken word guy, a melodic like spoken word, but the pain in his voice and the anguish, it's almost like you're sitting next to him watching.
right,
That's a gift. Like that's not too many people can do that, can let you feel like you've closed your eyes and you're sitting in that room with him. You know what I mean? Or you
right.
close your eyes and you're sitting there watching his father find out that he's been laid off. He's good. All right, what you got for us next, homeboy?
Um, all right, you know what I'm gonna sing now because I don't have anything. No, I'm kidding. Nah, so one of the things that people may not know, they may or may not know, depending on who you are and how closely you even followed, but
Mhm.
um, Gil Scott-Heron was also known as the Godfather of Hip Hop, you know,
Mhm.
and that's interesting because of like again like in watching interviews with him, I was able to get his take on things, and it's easy for us to like kind of look at somebody as a historical figure and start to give our opinions and say, oh, he was the godfather of hip hop because of the similarities in styles, right? Like where you have a person taking melody, taking music, and they're basically talking over it. Like that spoken word style over music is kind of the basis of hip hop. That's the core of hip hop, basically. Like where
Mhm.
you're taking music. In the case of hip hop artists, it was usually taking samples, looping those samples up, and adding whatever flavor to it they wanted, and then
Mhm.
basically talking over that and making it kind of match up in a way that would be pleasing to the ear, right?
Mhm.
But a couple of things came out of the interviews that I was listening to with Gil Scott Heron, and when he was asked like how he felt about being being labeled the Godfather of hip hop, it seemed like he had like kind of a mixed feeling about it. Like it seemed like in one vein, he felt that it was a good thing that if he was able to contribute in such a way where people got something positive out of it and felt that it was something to be kind of emulated or something to be carried on, so to speak. And he felt that if he had contributed something that significant that people felt it was necessary to carry on, he was really fine with that, and he thought it was awesome. Like if you want to call him the Godfather, he's fine with that,
Yeah.
right? But then there was also another side of it where he was asked about what he thought of the similarities between what he was doing and hip hop artists, and I
Mhm.
was surprised to hear him say that he didn't. I was surprised at first, I should say, because when he explained himself really well. Like he had a very good knack. Obviously, he had a good way with words, right? So
Mhm.
at first, I'm thinking to myself like, wow, he didn't really see himself as similar to hip hop artists. But when he explained it, it made a lot of sense, right? Because what he was saying, and especially for the time he's saying this like earlier on in like hip hop's kind of like genesis, and then when it becomes popular, he's saying that there's a difference, and the difference that he describes is that when he was making his work, if if he made if he put together the words first, right, he would make music that went along with those words exactly, right? Like he was creating a whole composition, he's saying, to convey this message. It wasn't he said that the difference was that he wasn't taking like a sample or a piece of some other music and putting it together and kind of trying to match it up so it matched the words.
Mhm.
He was actually creating both so they matched each other like at the same time. Like he was
Mhm.
developing music, he was composing the music, putting together the arrangement, and making it so it perfectly matched what he was trying to convey with the words, right?
Yeah.
So to me, it was almost like the same idea as if like we were narrating a movie or a video that we created. Like, so if you and I create a video together or we create a movie together and then we narrate that, we're trying to convey this message. Just it just so happens that we're using these two separate mediums, but we're creating both and putting them together in such a way that it conveys the message in the exact way that we want to, right?
Mhm.
And I'm trying to be a wordsmith in the way I'm explaining this right now,
Yeah.
and I'm hoping that it makes sense what I'm saying. But he's saying that would be the difference in his mind, that he's creating something that is one body of work by the time he's done, as opposed to taking from any other body of work and then kind of layering himself on top of it. The
Mhm.
whole thing is himself because he's composing it, arranging it, and the go with it perfectly because that's the way he has it in his mind. And he doesn't disparage hip hop in any way, right? Like I want to make that clear that he's not saying that what hip hop is doing is bad in any way, but he's just saying
Mhm.
that there's a difference. He almost seems surprised that people kind of didn't get that part, right? They just
Yeah.
they automatically said that okay, people are making this jump from okay, Gil Scott-Heron's doing this is the same thing, and now the kids are doing it now. You know, like they nobody
Yeah.
was able to kind of
Yeah. He felt it was
make
a
that
lazy
distinction.
comparison.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Like
he felt it was a lazy
it was a lazy
comparison. Mhm.
comparison. And the other thing that kind of struck me a little bit is when he was asked um what he thought of gangster rap at the time. And in some instances, like the media tends to do sometimes, they were like fishing for like a story. Like they want him to
Mhm.
say something sensational, right? And I thought what he said showed like a mastery again of words, because at first he starts to say like he doesn't think that all these artists are actually coming from the places that they're describing. Like they're not coming from the hardship or the struggle that they're actually describing and or especially if they're glorifying it.
Yeah.
He didn't think that they all came from that, right? And he said of course some of them do, but he just don't believe that all of them do. But then he said something that I thought was really like, like I said, just a great way of explaining his take on it was that you can't describe all of it in one sentence. And I think what he meant was that, the interviewer's trying to get him to say something, and it almost sounded like they were fishing for like, so like a negative
Early
comment or
clickbait. Yeah.
yeah, early clickbait, like clickbait before
Mhm.
clickbait. And he's saying that, hey, I can't describe all of this to you in one, or everything I think about this in one sentence, or, so he can't just break it down, s- so simply as to describe all of hip hop and all hip hop artists in the course of this short interview, right? And I thought that was a good way to put it because hip hop has like a lot of different layers. There's gangster rap, there's conscious rap, and there's a lot in between, right? There's a lot of like unlabeled type of styles that it would be hard for me to describe to everyone, and it was definitely hard for me to explain to my father that all of this is not just a bunch of people cursing and talking nonsense about.
Bunch of Mama Jahambo as
Yeah.
main source.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Shout out to
exactly.
main source.
Exactly. Shout out to main source. I guess what I'm trying to say is like it made me think back to when I would try to explain to my father, this is not all just gangsters talking about, nonsense. Like there are artists that are talking about real stuff that's happening. There are artists that have a message. And it was kind of hard for me to explain it all in the course of like just one debate or one argument where my father saying, oh, this is nonsense. It's all negative. It's all, you
Yeah.
know, and to hear him as Gil Scott-Heron, like kind of a master of words, kind of trying to set this reporter straight, this journalist straight, was it kind of just resonated with me because there's been times where I've had to have that conversation. I'm sure a lot of us we've had to kind of defend hip hop sometimes where people have come directly in a debate, and said like, hey, what about this? What about the misogyny? What about the all the drug dealing and violence
Violence.
and the glorification of these activities? And we had to let people know, like, listen, like, there's a certain level of narrative and journalism to that too, like where they're describing things that are happening. But then there's all types of other hip hop where they're not even talking about that. They're talking about other things. There's a message in it. There's positivity in it. There's beauty in it. there's art in it, right? Um, so yeah, that was a couple of things that I took from interviews with him, like just his they would try to nudge him in a certain direction in terms of like what they were trying to get him to say, or
Yeah, he
like you
always
said, like
seemed like he was in control of
yeah,
the interview.
he always felt
Hmm.
like it always felt like he got what they were trying to do, and he would
Yeah.
always explain to them why what they're trying to do is not really the point.
Yeah, because he was very. I also saw in one of the docs that I was looking at, he was talking about the difference in what he did. And it was almost like he was kind of like, artists know what I'm talking about. Like, you're not a real artist, so
Yeah,
you don't understand what I'm trying to convey. He wasn't talking bad or talking down on the genre. He was just talking about just process wise. Like, my process of doing it is totally different from what
right,
new young kids are doing. It's totally different process. The way I put everything together, it's just different. And that doesn't mean it's bad, but it just means that it's different. Like,
sure,
look what I do and look how he prepares and look how I prepare, and you'll see, to the trained eye, so to speak, you'll notice this is way different. Besides the fact that it's like spoken word over music, it's no real comparison in his eyes. It's like, I'm
right,
doing what I do, and they do what they do. Sure, I may have inspired some of them, so you may hear parts and bits of what I do in their music, but it's different. He's not like the last poets.
right,
You know what I
right,
mean? Like,
right,
he's different from the last poets.
sure.
But if you listen to it at first, you'd be like, oh, this is just some last poet stuff,
Like you said,
But it's
it's a
like,
lazy comparison.
yeah, it's a lazy comparison, but it is different at the same time. Sure, he was inspired at a certain point by the last poets, but then he took it to where he wanted to take it, and he did it, and he infused all of this blues and jazz and funk and all types of different background musics and cadences in his spoken word that made him totally different from anything else that was out there. And if you
Right,
think about it, since Gil Scott-Heron, who's made anything that's really similar to what he's done, even close to what he's done? Maybe they
right,
took a piece here and there, but no one has really been able to replicate the genius of Gil Scott-Heron.
right.
No?
Because you're talking about a person that's a musician, a
Mm-hmm.
poet, a singer, a writer, obviously.
Yeah.
So you're talking about different layers of just different layers, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's a good way to put it, man. That the process is way different too.
Mm-hmm.
Is a good way to explain that.
So this is my last entry of the album, The Pieces of a Man. And this is my favorite. This is my favorite. I think I'll call it Morning,
Yes, that's actually a positive,
Oh,
upbeat one.
yes,
Yeah, I
sir.
mean, upbeat in terms of like the messaging. Yeah.
Yes, sir. I'm going to take myself a piece of sunshine and paint it all over my sky. Be no rain. Be no rain. I'm going to take the song from every bird and make them sing it just for me. Yeah. Birds got something to teach us all about being free. Yeah. Be no rain. Be no rain. And I think I'll call it morning from now on. Why should I survive on sadness and tell myself I got to be alone? Why should I subscribe to this world's madness knowing that I've got to live on? Knowing that I've got to live on? Knowing that I've got to live on. Yeah, I think I'll call it morning from now on. That's my joint. And I've heard that he said that this is what he liked to play himself every morning when he got up. He would like play this song. This was one of his favorite songs that he recorded. And it's just like, yo, nothing, I'm not gonna let anything get me down. I'm gonna paint my own picture. I'm not gonna let anybody kind of infiltrate my happiness. Even if I have to pull happiness from something else. If something else that I
Sure.
see, I'm going to make my personal ecosystem. Oh!
See what you did there?
That's
That's what you call a callback, ladies
that's
and
what you
gentlemen.
call a callback. Um, So that's my favorite Gil Scott-Heron song
That's interesting that
of all
that's your
time.
favorite. Like
That's
I
my favorite,
it's
man. The
it's
Happy
to
Joint.
me it's a happy song and it's awesome. But it's interesting to me, man, because I know I just said like some of his music, his work, his poetry, even is hard for me to listen to. Like it's hard for me to listen to it like kind of back to back,
Mm-hmm.
or I can't listen to it and then go back to it quickly. Like I have to listen to it and then leave it alone for a while because of it just gives you like kind of a dark vibe. Some of it, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, I know it's almost like somebody that loves horror movies or something. I don't know. It's a bad analogy, but
Yeah.
it's like, you know how you like to be scared or like, but
Yeah.
but you're not gonna watch that same scary movie back to back. Like I'm not gonna watch Scream tonight and then watch it again tomorrow, right? Like I'm not gonna watch like it tonight and then watch it again tomorrow. But that's how I feel about some of his work. That even though it kind of it gives me that eerie feeling, or it gives me that melancholy and sadness sometimes. I do want to hear it again, and my favorites are the ones that are actually the saddest ones, right? Like when I hear "Me and the Devil," it's an eerie, weird feeling, but it's something about the messaging in it. It's something about what he's trying to say there that I feel like it needs to be heard, right? And the way he's saying it, the way he's conveying it, is something that I want to hear again. Like I want to hear from him, like this message, right? When he talks about me and the devil, because I feel like, maybe this is just my interpretation, but it feels to me the same as like a home is where the hatred is, right? Like it seems even like almost you deeper down the home is where the hatred is, right? Like
Yeah.
home is where the hatred is, where he's questioning whether or not he should even go home because he's deep in this hole. He got the monkey on his back. He's addicted to drugs, and going home only means more conflict and causing pain and having pain inflicted on him as well. Now you got me and the devil walking side by side, he says, and it's like, to me, you're even deeper down the rabbit hole of drug addiction. You're
Yeah.
deeper
It's
down
like you
that hole.
accepted your fate, so to speak.
Yeah, like
You know what I
now,
mean?
yeah, now
Yeah.
you've joined in, like
Strange
you
bedfellows, as they say.
right. It's
Mhm.
almost like if you can't beat them, join them type of song, right?
Yeah.
Like where it's like, okay, it's part of my being. It's a partner. It's what I wear, for better or worse, right? Also, Whitey on the Moon, right? But he says it in such like it's so clever,
Yeah.
that it's almost like one of those parodies again. Like, he says like a rat done bit my sister Nell with Whitey on the Moon. Her face and
Yeah.
arms began to swell. Whitey's on the moon. I
Mhm.
can't pay no doctor bills, but Whitey's on the moon. In 10 years I'll be paying still, but Whitey's on the
He's on the
moon.
moon.
So that one, and it's a short poem, right? But
Mhm.
it's profound to me because it encapsulates everything that's wrong with capitalism, everything that's wrong with society can be encapsulated in this very short poem, Whitey's on the Moon, because it's talking about the use of our funds, the use of our tax money for like big, huge projects that may seem, to some, like, of course, it's incredible. Like, to be able to put a man on the moon, to be able to, like, we talked about the Artemis too,
Yeah.
to be able to just even circumnavigate the moon is tremendous, right? Of
Yeah.
course, but if the same place that can do these tremendous and miraculous feats cannot find its way to help its own people and to feed its own people, then we have like an obvious imbalance. And if you are aware of this and not speaking on it, then what are you doing, right? Especially as an artist, as a person with a platform, he's saying that if you're seeing something, you have to say something. If you stand for nothing, you'll fall for anything. And that was his big thing about, he talks about, and I'm quoting here and I'm kind of paraphrasing, but he talks about calling a spade, right?
Mhm.
He's saying that just because and there's another quote by him. He said, just because somebody takes you for your money or steals your money, you might get taken, but that doesn't mean you gotta be quiet about it.
Yeah. Mhm.
And he had like I said, man, simple is not the right word, but that's the only word I can think of as a
Yeah.
non-poet. It's just like he has such a simple way of conveying these messages, right?
Because it sounds like something like your uncle tells you at Thanksgiving
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? When
yeah,
he's
it's
outside, he takes you
familiar.
outside with the brown paper bag, and he's hitting you with knowledge, and he's like, "Yo, let me tell you something, youngster."
Yeah, exactly. Yes, exactly. It has that,
Mhm,
like, small talk on 125th and Lenox, or you're up in the Bronx, or you're up at you're at your uncle's house, or you're at your parents' house, and your uncle tells
mhm.
you these simple things, or your
Yeah.
father might tell you these simple things, but it's not simple. It's profound. It's universal truth. We're seeing these things. We're seeing that we're living in a place that can do these miraculous things, like I said,
Mhm.
but can't make its way to feed its people,
Yeah.
or to make sure that they have proper health care, right?
Where are our priorities?
Right. And even and then
Mhm.
when you talk about it comes full circle when you think about like Tupac saying, they got money for war but can't feed the
Feed the
poor.
poor. Mhm.
So when you talk about him as the godfather of hip hop, it to me it's not just it's not just about the differences in the process, and I definitely agree with him that there is a difference in the process. And I agree with you there's a difference in the process.
Mhm.
But there is that like obvious parallel of like a message that is like simply put, but is conveyed in a genius way, right? Like it's understandable for everybody, it's palatable, it's consumable by everyone, but it's really direct and straightforward without a lot of fluff, right? Like, and that's what I get whenever I hear that poem.
So check that out. Oh, you have a book for us too, brother.
Oh yeah, so the other thing we talked about this a little earlier, but this is a book. This is one of the books that Gil Scott-Heron actually wrote. The name of it is The Vulture.
Mhm.
It's a murder mystery. I think it's about a drug dealer. I'm gonna be honest. Full disclosure, I just bought this book.
Yeah,
I,
neither
I,
one of us have
I,
read
I
this
plan
book
I
yet.
plan to get into it. This was part of my research, so I ordered this book for myself, and it just so happened to come in time to discuss it a little bit on this episode.
Mhm.
But Gil Scott Heron actually had two novels that he wrote. He wrote this particular one. I think he was about 19 years old, and it was published by the time he was 20. And he like I think we said this before, but he actually dropped out of Lincoln University for freshman year, just to finish this novel. The profound thing about that is that it's just the age that he was when he's writing these things. Like imagine
Mhm.
you write a book and you're getting published and you're writing novels at 20 years old, man. I don't know, man. When I think back to myself at 20, I wasn't ready to write a novel.
I sure wasn't.
I'm not ready to write a novel
I ain't
now,
ready to
but
write a novel now, and I
although
got plenty of life
I
experience.
have written a graphic novel, but that's
Mhm.
for a different time. But
Yeah,
uh,
man has an
um,
interesting life resume.
yeah, my life resume is pretty is getting better as a result of
Yes.
stuff like this. Thanks to you, Rance. Like my life resume is getting filled up with interesting tidbits. But anyway, so yeah, there's Gil Scott Heron's book. Another thing I wanted to just really quickly touch on, man. Is that came up in one of his interviews, right? Like, and again, like this was kind of the media. I don't know if they were nudging him in a certain direction, but he said something pretty profound about the idea of the West's influence or impact on the rest of the world. And I'm paraphrasing. I apologize if I'm butchering what he actually said. I don't want to say that I'm saying this word for word, but
We'll call it. That's why we call it here the paraphrase.
the paraphrase. But the but the gist of it was that the expectation in the West has had a large impact, obviously, on the rest of the world, right? And honestly, like if we're being really honest, some of it has been extremely negative and deadly at times, right? Like for the sake of like pulling resources, um, and what he says is that it's necessary for the West to kind of be fair and give respect where it's due, because we have other like countries in this world are kind of on the rise, right, in terms
Mhm.
of their economic power, their scientific power, their technology, and so on, right? And he's saying this like in the 1970s and 80s, right? This is his
Mhm.
thinking. So imagine in 2026 how much truer this is becoming, right? And as he's talking to the interviewer, he says that at least in his opinion, people are not asking for the West to pay for its crimes in terms of suffering, right? Like nobody wants to see the West suffer exactly, right? Like that's not the point. The point is not like for the sins of the father to be visited upon the sons or anything like that. He's saying that the more important thing is that we recognize that there's been a negative impact and to start to show respect to these places that are flourishing and on the rise um even after those negative effects. And then especially, to pay respect to folks that are now building themselves up and having like a technological advantage or educational advantage. He's saying that the idea is to start to have some respect and like kind of shed the arrogance, right, and the entitlement that is kind of synonymous with us in the West sometimes. So I just thought that his again, man, like I guess the point is like his mastery of delivering like a balanced and sensible and logical and emotionally intelligent message that is helpful. Because the
Yeah.
other thing he said that people should use the tools that they have available to them when it comes to making change. The idea is not that you're not going to be sitting at home or watching your TV set and make any sort of change. And also, not everybody needs to be out with a picket sign, right? He's saying that you can use the tools that are available to you. Whatever platform you have, whatever talents you have, could be used
Yeah.
towards a change in a positive direction, even if it's just talking to your neighbor, even if it's just kind of delivering that message around you to your own household, because it starts with a
Yeah.
change. He said
Even if it's making lunch
yeah,
for the protest. If you think it, there's
yeah,
no such thing as a small thing when it comes to,
exactly. Like, and
you know.
he even talks about voting, right? Because sometimes you get down and you're like, oh well, voting doesn't matter. What does it matter if we're still going to wind up in the same? But he's saying he's saying in a struggle for change, his basic message is that you should use every tool available to you. You should use
Mhm.
voting. You should use writing. He said that the thing that he found himself most competent to do is to use his art, right? To
Yeah.
to 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 deliver messages, and because the revolution starts in the mind, right?
Mhm.
If you can communicate these ideas and these thoughts to folks, then that's what is going to be the catalyst for change. It could mean your friends in your neighborhood or at your job or something, or like just your immediate circle might be what you have to change first. No matter
Everybody
how
has
small it
one
is, it's
talent,
something.
yo.
Yeah, everybody has a
Mhm.
talent, everybody has a voice. And if it's nothing but like, just like I said, like having a conversation with the people in your household and letting them know that you think there's a different way that things could be is something, right?
Yeah. So go, as we always encourage you to guys to do, read, pick up that book. Um, there's like there must be like 5, 6 documentaries on them on YouTube. One of the ones I saw was "The Revolution Will Not Be Televised." I think it was filmed in 2003. He speaks a lot, and his writing buddy Brian Jackson also speaks a lot in it.
Yeah.
And it has like Public Enemy. He's inspired everybody from Kanye West to Public Enemy, Dead
Most
Prez, Most
deaf.
Def. Yeah, yeah. So check out, read, look up documentaries. And oh, one more thing that I found out, that you know who his nephew is, right?
No.
Ah. His nephew is none other than Mr. Cheeks from the Lost Boys.
Get out of here. No,
Yep.
no way. Are you
Yep.
kidding?
Yep. Gil Scott-Heron is his uncle. Yeah, his father's brother. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, shout out to
Yeah,
Mr.
so Mr.
Cheeks.
Cheeks is Gil Scott-Heron's nephew. So read the book, look at the docs, and listen to the music, man. That Pieces of a Man. You gotta listen to that Pieces of a Man album. And the other 9, 10 albums that he had that he has. Um, before I got some shout outs, son, because we have some new international listeners apparently. So shout out to Singapore,
Singapore, wow.
Bolivia,
Bolivia, shout out to Bolivia. You're listening to
Vietnam.
us in Bolivia?
Yeah, apparently so. They listen to us in Bolivia, Vietnam,
Really? Are you serious?
Mexico, and Senegal.
Wow, the
So shout
jamming
out
in
to you guys,
Senegal?
yo. Shout out to Singapore, Bolivia, Vietnam, Mexico, and Senegal listening out for us. Wherever you're at, wherever you are, the Gen Expertise podcast. I'm probably going to have to learn how to say thank you in all of these languages. Apparently, because then we still got the Finland and the Brazil with, so shout out to you guys, and shout out to everybody local who listen to us and support us. And you know what, man?
Since we are prolific.
Since we are prolific. We will be back. Same Gen X time. Same Gen X place. Power to the podcast.
Power to the podcast.
R.I.P. to Gil Scott-Heron. Peace.
Peace.